Where are the lost tribes of Israel? You know, Ephraim, Manasseh, Reuben, etc. Did they just disappear from history? Hi, this is Dr. Michael Bogart of Aspect Ministries. In part 3 of this series, we looked at the possibility that some of the Israelites who had passed east through Persia probably settled in Central Asia and practiced the religion of Israel there. We also found hints that some from this migration may have branched off south down one of the southern trade routes towards the Indian Ocean, and they ended up settling in the area where Afghanistan and Pakistan come together. It's a possibility. This group may have included elements of the tribes of Ephraim, Gad, Reuben, and Levi. But could some of the Israelites actually have made it all the way to the Indian Ocean? Possibly. Now, to give some perspective, there have been Jews in India for a long time. Nobody disputes that fact. Jews in the South India city of Cochin claimed that their ancestors came from Baghdad in the last centuries of the BC era. But there are groups who seem to have been in India longer and who arrived from a different migration. One group who claimed to be Israelites and not Jews number around 5,000 and live in Mumbai or Bombay. Were they part of a migration from Central Asia down the southern trade route who made it all the way to India? Their legends are unclear. All they seem to know is that they are Israelites, not Jews, and that they've been in the West Indian coast for a long time. They claim no particular tribal affiliation, but they simply insist that they are Israelites. Okay, could there be other Israelite groups in India? Well, as I mentioned, Jews have been settled further south in Cochin since the final centuries BC. But there's also a legend that some Israelites have been in Cochin since the destruction of Solomon's temple in the early 500s BC. We learn from early Christian history that the Apostle Thomas made a journey to this part of South India in the 1st century AD, and he was martyred there. Why did he go to South India? Maybe because it was well known that a significant group of Israelites had settled there. Remember, the policy of the apostles of the early Christian church was always to offer the message of Christianity to the people of Israel first, if possible. Okay, it seems feasible to me at least that Israelites may have settled in West and South India a long time ago. Today, just a tiny handful of Jews or Israelites remain in Cochin. Most of that community have migrated to Israel. But what about further east? Could there be Israelites there? For many centuries, until maybe 300 years ago, there had been a Jewish community in China as well, centered around the city of Kaifeng. Given what little information there is from Chinese annals, Israelites from Central Asia, either Jews or elements of the northern tribes, came to China over the Silk Road in the 7th and 8th centuries AD. Another separate Chinese record states that others of the Hebrew faith came to China from India a couple of centuries later. So colonies of those practicing the religion of Israel were present in China for several hundred years. But since the 1700s, there's been no synagogue in Kaifeng or any of the other Chinese cities where these people once lived. Their descendants have now mostly intermarried and blended into Chinese culture. But their presence in times past is well documented. Were they Northern Israelites? Hard to say. But what about that group that arrived not from the main Silk Road, but from India 1,000 years ago? Maybe more information lies in that direction. Let's take another look at the Silk Road map. You can see that there's a southeastern branch that comes up from India at the northern tip of the Bay of Bengal. Did the Israelite travelers come by that route, or was it by sea to the Chinese coast and then inland? Records don't specify. But whether they came by the overland route or by sea, their beginning point in India would have been very close to another group that claims Israelite descent, the Bnei Menashe, also known as the Hmong people living on the border of India and Myanmar, formerly known as Burma. And this region is very close to the southeastern branch of the Silk Road. Although some Hmong make public claims of descent from the tribe of Manasseh, these claims really only date from the 1950s. And it would be easy for a group of people under pressure to make claims that would enhance their status. However, certain of their ancestral customs may indeed be tied to those of the ancient Hebrews. For example, their distaste for pork, a very uncommon thing in Asia. Also, neighboring people groups strongly assert that the Hmong are not native to the region but are migrants from somewhere else, a claim that the Bnei Menashe agree with. In the 1800s, when Christian missionaries arrived in this part of eastern India, they brought the Christian message and stories from the Bible. Many of the tribal people of this group responded positively because the stories resonated with some of their own ancient traditions. Today, many remain Christian, but some have converted to Judaism. A few have even immigrated to Israel. Are they remnants of the tribe of Manasseh as they claim? Difficult to say. But if they're lost Israelites, then maybe some from their group migrated from this region to China 1,000 years ago, as recorded in Chinese annals. It's a fascinating thought. But here's something that I encountered from my own experience teaching the Bible to Christian leaders from ethnic minorities in Central California. Several of the students I taught were Christian leaders among the Hmong people who've settled in this area. The Hmong are recent refugees from Southeast Asia after the pullout of United States troops from Vietnam in the 1970s. The Hmong are a subgroup of the Miao people of southern China and Laos. The creation stories of the Miao people and their view of the world are eerily similar in some respects to the book of Genesis. So these Hmong pastors that I taught told stories of their ancestors' migration to China from a land far away, and then of their persecution in China, leading to another migration into the mountains of Laos. They also claimed that Hmong customs concerning some aspects of food and daily life were very similar to those of ancient Israel, and were the reason why many Hmong have converted to Christianity in recent times. But is it true? Well, all I can say is they were convinced. Well, to wrap up this video, let's take a look at a people that are a little more widely known, the Falasha of Ethiopia. This African tribal group, also known as Beta Israel, claims ties to Judaism through two avenues. First is their claim that the kings of Ethiopia descend from a fabled union between King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba during her visit to Jerusalem, as recorded in 1 Kings chapter 10. The visit's real, the Bible records it. Their union that produced a child could be true, but it's not recorded in the Bible. Now, the other claim is that the Falasha people as a whole are descended from the tribe of Dan, some of whom migrated there during the upheavals related to the Assyrian invasion that I spoke about in previous videos in this series. The New Testament does confirm a significant practice of Judaism among Ethiopians as far back as the 1st century AD. Think of the encounter of Philip the Evangelist with the Ethiopian eunuch in Acts chapter 8. Again, is there really a tie to Israelite ancestry among the Falasha? Well, we can't be certain, but in 1984, the Israeli army airlifted thousands of these Falasha out of war-torn Ethiopia and Sudan for resettlement in Israel. So at least some officials in Israel believed their claims to be Israelites. Okay, so much for these possibilities. I'll post links to some of the more intriguing videos and articles that I've come across in the discussion box below. Are there other people that have been suggested as possible descendants of lost tribes? Well, let's look into that question in the next video, Where Are the Lost Tribes of Israel, Part 5. Till then, this is Dr. Michael Bogart with Aspect Ministries.